He thought he was going to trick me. He changed the lock on my car, pretended he didn't know anything, but he forgot one detail: the entire condominium has cameras. And me. I had a copy of the video. It was a normal Monday, until everything started to go wrong. I went down to the parking lot with my car keys in hand, ready to leave. I had an important appointment that morning, so everything needed to go smoothly. But when I tried to unlock the car with the remote, nothing happened. I thought it was the battery. I tried again. Nothing. I brought the key to the door, pressed it again. Nothing. I stood there, staring at the car as if it were going to give me an explanation. After a few failed attempts, I tried to open it manually. And then came the shock. The key wouldn't fit properly. At that moment, my heart raced. I knelt beside the door, took a closer look, and noticed a detail that hadn't been there before. The lock had a small scratch around its edge and was more polished. Different. I ran back to the apartment and grabbed the spare key. Same thing. Neither worked. That's when I realized someone had changed the lock on my car. My first reaction was confusion. I thought, could I have been the victim of an attempted theft? But the car was intact. No signs of forced entry, no broken windows. The alarm hadn't gone off. Apparently, nothing had been taken. What was panicking me was this: someone had tampered with my car inside the condominium garage. And worse, someone had replaced a part without me noticing. The feeling was of violation. I felt invaded, exposed. This wasn't just about a lock. It was about trust. About security. About knowing you can leave the house and your belongings will be there, intact. I returned to the apartment in a daze. I called a trusted locksmith. When he arrived and inspected the car, he confirmed what I'd already suspected. Someone changed the key in this lock. It's brand new. This one's definitely been replaced. I was shocked. Who would do that? Why? I couldn't think of anyone who had a reason. I hadn't had any recent arguments with anyone in the building. I'd never parked in the wrong spot, never bothered anyone. But then a name came to mind: the neighbor from 406. In the past few months, he'd been displaying strange behavior. He'd grumble when we passed in the hallway. Once, he let slip a mocking comment when I parked next to his spot. Some people think they can park however they want. At the time, I ignored it. I thought he was just another typical condo grump. But now, those little actions started to make sense. More than once, I noticed him watching my car from the balcony. And, days before the incident, I saw him arguing with the doorman, pointing at my vehicle. I didn't hear what he said, but his tone was harsh. That suspicion grew within me like a silent fire. But, until then, everything was conjecture. And I knew that to do anything, report, complain, or confront, I needed proof. That's when I remembered something essential. The parking lot has cameras. And, thanks to the insurance contract, I had requested copies of the last 72 hours of footage, just in case, a few days before. It was standard insurance procedure because of a previous claim, and the footage was still saved on my personal cloud. I sat down at the computer, heart racing, and began reviewing the videos from the previous night. It took me almost 2 hours filtering the times, fast-forwarding clips, until I saw it. Yes, it was him. The neighbor from 406. He appeared in the video wearing a cap and mask. He approached my car around 3 a.m. He was carrying something small in his hands. He stopped, looked around, and crouched down right next to the driver's door. He stood there for over 5 minutes. When he got up, he put something in his pocket and walked away as if nothing had happened. My heart raced. It was him. Clearly. The way he walked, the clothes. He wore that same blue sweatshirt almost every day. And even though he tried to hide it, he forgot the most important thing: the building has eyes. And I had a copy. After seeing that video, there was no doubt. The neighbor from 406 had tampered with my car. At 3 a.m. With tools in hand. And with the certainty that no one was watching. But what he didn't know was that I already had the proof in my hands. The image wasn't the clearest. It was from a security camera with night vision, after all. But his posture, his body, the blue hooded sweatshirt, his walk, everything about him screamed guilty. And more than that, The time of the recording coincided exactly with the morning my car lock was changed. I spent the night awake. Between shock and anger, I wanted to knock on his door the next day and show him the video. But I decided to wait. I watched. Because people who do something wrong always make a misstep. And he started to. The next morning, I acted as if nothing had happened. I greeted the doorman, went to my car, still locked with the lock changed, and called the building manager, informing her that I'd like to schedule a meeting with the building manager, without mentioning the reason. I saved the video on a flash drive and also sent a copy to my own email, just in case. Later, I ran into my neighbor in the elevator. As soon as he saw me, he froze. He didn't say anything. He didn't look me in the eye. But his shoulders recoiled, as if his body was already confessing what his mouth didn't have the courage to say. I simply said politely, "Good morning." He replied in a low voice, "Good morning." And he quickly left as soon as the door opened on his floor. It was at that moment that my intuition was confirmed. He knew that I knew. In the following days, his behavior became stranger. He walked through the hallways with hurried steps, avoided the garage at the same times I usually got out, and, most suspiciously, he took his car out of his parking space for 2 days in a row, claiming he was going to wash it or get it serviced. But the truth was different. He was nervous. He was hiding. Other neighbors began to notice his behavior too. A resident of 405 casually commented to me, "That guy from 406 is acting a little strange, isn't he? I saw him talking to himself yesterday on the emergency stairs." I just smiled and said, "There are things we only understand with time." The tension was mounting, and his silence only made me want to expose everything. But before any confrontation, I wanted him to show himself more. And it didn't take long. One Saturday morning, as I was returning from the market with my daughter, I saw his car parked in the parking space again. And, curiously, he was there, wiping the hood with a cloth, as if he were extremely concerned about the vehicle's appearance. There was something in his expression that caught my attention. He was restless. I made a point of passing by. When he saw me, he tried to maintain his composure. "Good morning." "Good morning," I replied with a half-smile. It was then that he blurted out of nowhere, "By the way, did you manage to fix that problem with the car?" The question was laced with falsehood, as if he didn't know exactly what he'd done. I feigned surprise. "Oh yes. I'm already fixing it. In fact, the parking lot footage helped a lot." He froze for 2 seconds. It wasn't long, but it was enough for me. He looked away, coughed lightly, and said, "Oh, that's great. Cameras are a safety feature, right?" "Of course. It records everything perfectly. It's impressive how nothing escapes." We were silent for a few seconds. A heavy silence. At this point, he was already suspicious that I had something up my sleeve. But he didn't yet know how much. That evening, I received an anonymous message on the building's intercom. The doorman told me that a neighbor wanted to speak with me in the garage. I went downstairs, with my cell phone in my pocket recording, and there he was. The man from the 406. This time, without posing. He was sweating. His hands were shaking. "Look, I wanted to clear up a misunderstanding. I noticed you had trouble with your car, and I thought it was a problem with the lock. Since I've lived here for years and understands locks, I thought I could help. I replaced it myself, but my intention wasn't to hurt you." He lied. Straight up. I stared at him for a few seconds and calmly said, "So you approach a car that isn't yours, in the dead of night, without telling the owner, and decide to replace a part? That's not help, sir. That's trespassing." He tried to justify himself. I rushed. "I thought I was doing you a favor. I swear I didn't know it would cause a fuss." That's when I pulled my phone out of my pocket and showed him the screen frozen at the exact moment in the video. "This is you at 3:14 in the morning, messing with my car." His expression was indescribable. His face drained of color. His throat dried. His posture slumped. He shook his head, muttering, I didn't know you had a camera." And that's when everything fell apart. His expression, as he watched the paused video on his phone, said it all. For the first time since it all began, the neighbor from 406 couldn't maintain his composure. The arrogance slipped from his face like a cold sweat. The mask fell, and in its place was the nervous man, cornered and embarrassed at having been caught.
Look,
I didn't know there was a camera in the parking lot, he repeated, trying to sound surprised, but his voice cracked.
Yeah, I replied.
The building has one.
And so do I.
Because this here, I pointed to the video, isn't from the condominium's camera. It's from my insurance company. The same video has already been sent to the management and is registered to my email. He fell silent. He swallowed hard. He ran his hand over his face and stared at the ground. I knew that, from then on, there was no point in lying. I had proof. You touched my car without permission. You changed a part. In the middle of the night. That has a name, trespassing. And depending on how the law is interpreted, it's a crime. At that moment, he tried to change his tone. He tried to act remorseful. I admit I was wrong. It was impulsive. The way you parked bothered me. I thought I could fix it, and then let you know. Lie again. I never parked wrong. I always respected the parking space, the limits, the building rules. He invented some excuse to try to justify the unjustifiable. But it was too late. You didn't try to fix it. You tried to touch something that didn't belong to you. And it only didn't turn out worse because I kept my cool. Because, honestly, neighbor, you don't know how lucky you were that I didn't go straight to the police station. He asked us not to go any further, to settle it between neighbors. He said he could pay for the lock, that he could sign a statement acknowledging the mistake. He didn't want any complications with the police. But I didn't want money, or a signed document. I wanted respect and justice. The next morning, I personally took the video to the building manager, along with a written report. He was shocked. He watched the recording with a frown, indignant. I knew he was hot-tempered, but I never imagined he was capable of something like that. I explained everything. The moment I noticed the lock had been replaced, the locksmith confirming the part was new, the coincidence with the neighbor's strange behavior, the early morning video, and the confrontation in the garage. The building manager thanked me for my clarity and said he would take action. And he did. That same day, an official notice was sent to apartment 406. The content was straightforward: violation of condominium rules, trespassing, and the obligation to appear at a special meeting to clarify the matter. The buzz in the building began shortly thereafter. Neighbors, who until then had only known 406 as that grumpy old man, began discreetly chatting in the hallways. Did you see he messed with the neighbor's car? It looks like there's a video and everything. But why would anyone do that? The meeting took place 2 days later. In the building's meeting room, the following were present: me, the building manager, a condominium counselor, and him, the neighbor of 406. Sitting across the table, visibly uncomfortable, he watched the video again, this time in front of everyone. When it was over, no one said anything for a few seconds. Then the building manager came right out. Can you confirm it's you in the footage? He had no choice.
Yes.
Are you aware that this behavior constitutes a violation of internal regulations and may also have legal implications? He nodded. He murmured, "It was a mistake. I acknowledge it." "You'll answer for it," the building manager said dryly. The decision was as follows. He received an official warning, recorded in the minutes. He was also required to pay for the reinstallation of the original part in my car by a professional locksmith I recommended. And finally, it was determined that any repeat offense would result in a fine and the filing of a police report. He accepted everything silently. But what struck me most was his wife's reaction. Upon hearing everything, she came to my door, red with embarrassment. "I'm sorry. I didn't know he'd gone this far. We've had problems with his impulsiveness before, but I never thought it would reach this point." She apologized sincerely. She said she was disappointed, but not surprised. He has this habit of solving things his way, but now he'll have to face the consequences. That conversation, unlike the confrontation, left me at peace. Because there I realized he wasn't just unmasked, he was exposed even in his own home. And that's how the video, silent and objective, did what many words couldn't. it proved the truth. After the meeting with the building manager and the official confirmation of the neighbor from 400's excess guilt, the mood in the building changed, and he felt it more than anyone. That man who once walked the hallways with his chest puffed out, looking at his neighbors with contempt, now walked with his head down, averting his gaze from everyone. He avoided passing anyone, especially me. And if the elevator happened to stop on my floor, he'd wait for the next one. He said nothing. He didn't apologize. For the first week after the incident, he barely left the house. His car remained parked, as if simply going to the garage would remind him of what he'd done. The truth is, throughout the entire building, he became known as the neighbor who was caught trying to sabotage his neighbor's car, and still had the nerve to deny it until the video surfaced. And that title stuck with him like a trademark. Some neighbors approached me discreetly, as if they didn't want to intrude, but couldn't contain their curiosity. Is it really true he changed the lock? Do you still have the video? Wow, you were brave, see? I would have exploded. The most curious thing was realizing the domino effect that story had. After the exposure, other small complaints about the neighbor's behavior began to surface. People he had mistreated, past incidents of arguments over trivial matters, harsh attitudes in the building's WhatsApp group. Everything began to be remembered. It was as if, now that he had been unmasked, everyone felt empowered to completely remove his mask. But what struck me most about this outcome wasn't his isolation. It was realizing how much I had grown from this situation. Because I could have exploded. I could have made a scene, broken everything, knocked on his door that same day. And you know what? No one would blame me. But I chose another route. Firmness, patience, and strategy. And that was precisely what gave me what he never had, respect. He tried to solve everything his way, in the dead of night, with a cowardly attitude. I solved it with evidence, with presence, with dignity. And this difference became very clear in the end. The following week, the locksmith I recommended came to the building, accompanied by the building manager, and reinstalled the original lock, paid for with the neighbor's own money. He didn't show up. He sent his wife down. And she, once again, looked at me with shame, but also with relief. I think now he understands that you can't solve things by shouting. And certainly not behind someone's back. What happened next? He stayed in the building. But he disappeared. He isolated himself. He barely showed up. He stopped attending meetings. He no longer sent indirect messages to the group. And when we passed in the hallway, he would swerve as if he were always afraid I would say something. But I didn't speak. I didn't need to. The truth had already done its work. The neighborhood, little by little, also began to change. The incident served as a wake-up call. Everyone became more concerned about safety, respect, and, above all, the power of cameras.
And me.
I emerged stronger. My daughter saw me get through it all with poise. My friends congratulated me for not giving in to impulse. And today, every time I press the car key and it unlocks normally, I feel more than relief. I feel like no one will intimidate me with silence or sabotage again. This story taught me that nerve doesn't survive concrete proof. And that justice, when served calmly and truthfully, is more powerful than any revenge. If this story revolted you, inspired you, or reminded you of something similar, leave a like now and subscribe to the channel, because here, lies have short legs, and cameras have long memories.